Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Euphoric, the podcast. I'm super excited to have Erika here with me. Erika, tell us a little bit about what you do for a living.
Thank you so much for having me. I am a yoga teacher and I'm a somatic coach and I'm a podcaster just like you. So that's also part of what I do. But I feel like you're asking more about the yoga and the coaching itself. I focus my work on helping people that have a sensitive nervous system, that sometimes you'll see like highly sensitive people or HSPs, mostly women, understand their sensitivity so they can stop feeling limited by it or resentful for it, because we're kind of taught that being sensitive is something wrong and something weak about us. That's what I was thought. I was always told like you're too sensitive, like it meant like something bad. So helping women understand that that's not the truth, and then moving into like building a relationship with it in a way that you understand and you can see how it gives you particular skills and particular talents, and that makes it something uniquely special and beautiful about you. So tapping into that so you can live your like fullest life, your fullest potential with your sensitivity and as a power in your toolkit and not as a challenge, basically.
Yeah. Well, I have so many questions about that. But before I go deeper into that, I'm guessing that you have an interest in this work based on some kind of story, some kind of life transformation you've had. So, let's walk backwards a little bit, many years
Mm-hmm.
ago, what kind of challenges did you go through to recognize this sensitivity in yourself? And then how did you kind of overcome and transform?
Oh, I feel that's a really big question.
I know, right?
So very, very young. I was about 8 years old when I first started dabbling into eating disorder. Now, when I first starting to have disordered eating behaviors. And that was the first really way that I learned how to numb my sensitivity, to numb everything I was feeling, to feel like I was in control, to feel like I it was helping me feel more grounded and more like connected to the earth, in the sense like the heaviness of the food. I was more into binge eating than like the anorexia side. It was like a mix of like binge and restriction, like in a pattern. So eating was making me feel like in my body a little bit, because I felt so like I needed to change who I was and I needed to repress myself. That's the first way it came out. It was with food. And then as a teenager, it was alcohol and drugs, and just any other way that would make me feel quote unquote better about myself, and like would give me a moment of like, oh, I can be all of this because I'm drunk. Like it gave me an excuse to be myself, right? To not have to like hold it in, to not have to pretend, to not have to play a game of being something that I was not. So those were the definitely like two biggest, most obvious kind of steps in that. And then of course, over time, like every relationship you have, so like I was married, I had a couple other significant relationships, they mirror, some things back at you for you to understand and learn. And so of course I was with partners that they felt like I was way too much, right? And so I felt like I was not enough in a weird way, like you're too much and you're not enough at the same time, right? Or like I was manipulative by being so sensitive, like as if I was using it as a way to make them feel guilty, or they would think I was using it as a way to like get my way, like, oh, you can cry on command. It's like, no, it's not that I can cry on command, is that I literally like I'm so easily like feeling these things, and sadness will come like really naturally and really easily for me. So things like that, like you kind of pick up clues and you're like, I am different in some way. Like if people keep pointing that this is like not what they expect, like you start to reflect, right? And within my yoga journey is probably when I started yoga that I first started to like lean into like self-study and lean into connecting inward and lean into those things of like, oh, a bigger desire to really understand myself.
Mhm.
And then of course therapy and coaching for myself and all the other tools where you learn more about yourself, you get more clear about what's going on. And myself being highly sensitive, I just felt like I wanted to help people that were in a similar situation, just because one, it's very easy for me to relate to what they're going through. And I feel like I'm very equipped in a sense of like, I have learned it mostly like by trial and error over the years, and like, it doesn't have to take you 30 years to figure it out. If someone can help you, like hold your hand a little bit and go a little quicker through the steps. So this is how it's been.
Yeah. And I just feel like there's so many things you said that so many of the clients I've worked with that I have experienced, just so much of what you're talking about is just so relevant with us. And it's so strange when you come across as this world who just doesn't understand you, or, like you're too much, you're not enough, all these different kind of ways that women are just wrong, and you're made to feel wrong in your own body. So like, you have all this healing, you do all this incredible work on yourself. But I'm curious then, now that you're working in this field and you're coaching, what is like a highly sensitive person exactly? And
Mhm.
how would like someone listening, what kind of signs or signals should they be looking for their body or their experiences in life to denote that, because we have like other words that are thrown around, like, okay, there's introversion or extroversion or, all these different other kind of ways to describe certain phenomenon. So how would you describe this?
So being highly sensitive means, like really simply put, that your nervous system is more sensitive than average to input or to stimuli that is coming either from inside your body or from outside your body. So your environment. So anything that comes from the senses, you're going to be more sensitive than other people. So something really simple to notice: are you sensible to bright lights, to loud sounds, to uncomfortable textures in your clothes, to like, are you made to be picky? Like I thought my whole life I was very picky. Like I was picky about my sleep. Like what I need for me to sleep is very like I'm like little princess in the pea because I'm so sensitive and my sleep will be disrupted so easily, right? So I pick up things that other people don't notice. I can feel how people feel, even if they're not saying it. I can know if someone's lying to me, like just the energy, right? Like if you're highly sensitive, you feel the subtle things on an energy level. You also have more like not necessarily reactivity, but you experience your emotions more fully, more intensely than most people. So that means that when you're sad, you're going to be really, really sad. And when you're angry, you're going to be really angry. But when you're joyful, you're also going to be so joyful. Like if you allow yourself to feel, you're going to have a chance to feel every emotion out there, but in a full, really full way. So those are a few examples, but because you're sensitive, you're going to be sensitive to caffeine, you're going to be sensitive to alcohol, you're going to be sensitive to your blood sugar level. So like if you get hangry easily, that might be a sign that like you're more sensitive to what's happening in your body. That's an example, right? Like your blood sugar, your caffeine, like those are things that are happening inside. You're probably more sensitive to pain than average because you feel things more fully, right? And then in the environment, if it's not the noise, the light, the sound, other people's energy, just anything in the environment that you receive, you will have a read with a bit more. It's like sensitive people notice the very little details that other people don't notice. Like they might describe you as someone that's a really keen observer or a really good listener, right? Because you notice, all the things that are happening around you. You're probably described as shy, as sensitive, of course, as introverted. Although that's something different, 70% of people that are highly sensitive are also introverted because we have a really big inner world as well. Like we can, connect inward when we learn how to allow ourselves to do that. We don't, and we tend not to be extroverted because it's too much. Like it's being with a lot of people, a lot of energy, like going to a party or to a nightclub or having all the attention on you just feels like it feels intense, right? So those are all ways that you can notice. You'll also need more time alone than most people to decompress, like to relax. Like you need to unplug. That's really important to support your sensitivity, and that's something that will naturally be drawn towards. And you'll be really moved, just like positive emotions you'll feel intensely, you'll be really moved by the beautiful things. So art, music, nature, those are things that you're gonna, if you're the person who walks out in the forest and you're like, oh, wow, like you're just amazed with everything, that's it's a sign that you're probably highly sensitive, because other people might not even notice like the beauty that lays in, the things that we see every day. So those are a few examples. There's more, but I'm sure it's a good start.
Well, how sad that we don't see the beauty of the forest, like, um, and as you're talking, like, there's also this idea of being like an empath and someone who feels other feelings. So do you think those are similar? Do you think they're the same thing, or how would you describe
I
that?
think they're different, but I think a lot of highly sensitive people are empaths. I think to be an empath, you need a certain sensitivity and you need to be able to really like hone it. And I think highly sensitive people have really strong intuition. And like there's places where those two terms can come kind of and mesh. But I think you can be highly sensitive and not lean into that gift of really feeling what other people's are feeling or thinking, or I'm not saying that you're psychic, but I think you can't really be an empath without being sensitive.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. When I was growing up, if I heard the word sensitive, and I obviously had very deep moments of vulnerability and sensitivity in my life, I would think of, someone whose feelings are hurt very easily, or someone who
Mm-hmm.
cries very easily. So there was also this like desire to be like, I'm not sensitive. I'm going to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put up this guard. And maybe alcohol functions like that. So do you think like how highly sensitive people use alcohol? Like what was your experience, and what do you think other highly sensitive people might end up doing when alcohol is involved too?
I think we tend to be more sensitive to alcohol than average people, but we also tend to use it as a numbing mechanism, as I was talking about earlier. So I think if you're feeling comfortable in your sensitivity and you're drinking socially, you're probably going to get, tipsy faster. Let's say, like, you're going to be more sensitive to the effect. Maybe your hangovers are going to be a little worse, or, whatever comes from what happens to your body when you drink. If you're using it as a way to cope with what you feel about yourself, because you're sensitive, because you think I should be strong, because like you feel like there's a difference there, and you're like, if I'm strong, I can't be sensitive, then you're going to use it as just any other addictive thing you would use to stop yourself from feeling, or stop yourself from feeling bad about yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious, when you opened up, you mentioned that like this is really something that's in your nervous system. And it's, obviously there's emotions, but there's also just sensations. Like there's just a greater awareness of what's happening, and I think that's
Mm-hmm,
actually a really
mm-hmm.
beautiful thing. And so, how would someone learn to regulate their nervous system? How would someone learn to, not handle, but basically uh
Support.
support, yeah, their sensitivity in ways that are also nourishing and holistic for them?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the first thing is to create safety from within, right? Because if you're in a state of like rejecting who you are and like bullying yourself and like negative self-talk, which a lot of people will have when they're sensitive because they feel like there's something wrong with them, the first step is going to be to create safety. Because if you're coming at it from like, I need to fix myself because I'm broken, that energy in your nervous system is actually the energy of fight or flight. It's the energy of stress. It's the energy of contraction. And that's not going to help you support, right? It's going to create more anxiety. It's going to create more shame. It's going to create things that might come from your sensitivity and amplify it. So, first, kind of becoming a safe space for yourself is where we start. And that might come directly from nervous system regulation practices, or it might be a lot of like thought work and just giving yourself permission to be, permission to feel, things like that, right? And of course, like, you have to titrate. You have to start small. If you've been like repressing your feelings forever and you're like, we're gonna feel now. You're gonna be like, yeah, no, like it's not gonna be okay. Like it's gonna be the end of the world if I let myself cry, right? When we tend to like repress for so long. So making space for that, and then moving into the state of your nervous system where you are able to feel relaxed, heart open, safe. It's gonna be kind of a circle. You can create safety and then kind of anchor it, where you're gonna be able to connect to other people, to be vulnerable. Like those, all those things are in the same state of your nervous system, right? So we have like three states in the nervous system. We have the fight or flight, that is like pretty known, like your stress response, and then we have depending on who you talk to and like the research, there is the ventral vagal, which is what I was describing, which is your capacity to be open, calm, loving, connected, safe. And then there's the collapse side where you're like playing dead to survive, where you're like completely down and done. And that might look like complete overwhelm, but it's oftentimes like hopelessness, helplessness, like this kind of heaviness, right? And then there's also like the fawn side, like the people pleaser. I will do what I need to do to survive and put a smile. So like I don't get caught like in trouble, right? So like there's different ways that your nervous system functions, but we want to bring ourselves into the ventral vagal. And to do that, there's so many tools. Some of them are going to be grounding, like grounding practices, mindfulness practices, some slow movements that might resemble like a yoga or walking, hiking, like these kind of, and a lot of repetition in the movement is going to help your nervous system quiet down. Things like physical touch. So being able to ask for a hug or to be held, or having a pet to cuddle with, or literally touching your own body, like self massage, like massaging your body with oils or things like that. Those are going to be supportive for your nervous system as well and put you in that space of relaxation and calm. So anything that helps you feel that calmness, that playfulness that comes with it as well. Because when we feel safe, we're like allowing ourselves to be. So for some people, that's going to look like doing things that they used to love when they were kids, right? Like maybe it's creating art, or maybe it's cartwheels in the park, like something that connects you to that inner child that felt free, right? Like that sense of like not all the shoulds that we have in our lives today, and all the obligations and all the stress and the fear, like connecting to that version of yourself that felt the freest and the most comfortable. And so there's all these different tools that we can bring in, but depending on where the person starts, meaning whether they are collapsed or whether they are really stressed, we're going to have to kind of take a step before that to meet their energy where it is. So an example that I like to use a lot is like if you're trying to calm your mind because your mind is like a tornado of ideas, and you're like, oh, I'm going to go sit and meditate. If any of your listeners have tried meditation before, they probably know that if you're forcing yourself to quiet down, your brain is just going to go like double force, right? Like the thoughts are just more intense, and everything feels like your brain is not just going to shut off like it's a switch. And you're like, now it's meditation, because you're in an agitated state to start with. So you have to meet the agitation with something that is agitating, quote unquote, and it's going to help the nervous system come online with like the heart and the head, in a sense where like if you are very agitated and you do something like shaking or dancing or like a very strong bellows breath or breath of fire, something that is like counterintuitive, that you might think, no, I need something relaxing, that will allow you to then go into the next step of something very relaxing, very calming for you. But you have to take that first step before. So we have to learn the different parts of the nervous system, so we have awareness of where we are in those states, and then we can take a decision to meet our energy, to meet ourselves in where we are, and only then we can shift to create something that will be more supportive for our nervous system, depending on where we are and what we need in this moment.
Wow, yeah. I just felt like I was sitting in like a warm cocoon just to hear you describe some of those practices, because they just seem just so almost like luxurious in the sense of like I'm listening, I'm taking care of myself, like this body matters, this mind matters, and we're just going to go slow and we're going to get to know each other here. I'm so curious, like if you were to look at a really just beautiful week in your life, like what kind of routines do you have in place to make sure that you're taking care of your needs as well in these kind of practices? And I don't like to say day because not everyone has a perfect day, but if we look at just like a week, like what are some kind of non-negotiables for you to be able
Mm,
to, like you said, be with yourself, decompress, listen to your body, all those kinds of things.
yeah. So there's a few. One is a nature walk. I will go out and walk every single day. And I am pretty lucky to live by the beach. So I usually go walk the beach. But I also have some hiking that's available around me. So going out in nature, putting my feet in the earth, like taking shoes off, is always very good for me. Any water is also very nurturing. So if I can either go swim at the beach or hike to a waterfall or even just sit in the pool quietly, there's something very calming for me about the element of water. So those are two things that I do daily: water and earth of nature of some kind. And then within that, or separately as well, I take the time to get some sunshine every day. And that has been very, very important for me. And it's made a huge impact on my wellness and my health. Just to take a few, like 15 minutes to sit in the sun. And it's like a recharge for my energy, like as if I'm like electronically plugging myself into the sun, like getting that form of energy. So those are definitely things that I will do every day. Then I have a yoga practice, I have a meditation practice. So I will meditate and or do breath work usually at night, depending on what is going on in my life. Like right now, I'm in a time in my life where I've been feeling ungrounded a little bit more than normal. So I've been focusing my practices at night on creating a sense of being grounded before I go to bed, because I feel ungrounded, particularly in dream state and in the night. So depending on what's going on in my life, then those practices are going to vary. But there's always going to be something in the realm of yoga, meditation, breath, or like chanting, kind of. I really love the power of sound. So that being said, something not every day, but I will do fairly regularly is dance. Like no one's watching, putting music really loud and dancing, even if it's just one song. If I have to do something that asks quite a bit of energy or presence or focus, if I need a break from work, I've been at the computer for a few hours, I'll just put a song and like just let it go and really dance it out for a few minutes. And then I sit back and I'm like, okay, I'm like refreshed and I'm ready to do that again. So those are little things that I do very, very regularly. And then there's little tweaks like in food and habits every day that have made a big difference in my nervous system as well. Things as simple as like cutting down caffeine, or making sure I have food before I have caffeine, or making sure that I eat in the first hour that I wake up. Like different little things to really support my system, knowing that I need to have food on a regular basis. Make sure I pack a snack when I go for a while, like all little things that that might not be like official practices, but they support me. And then anything that's like allowing me to single task instead of multitask is feeling more supportive for me as well. And things like wearing headphones, like even if I don't have music, like just there's something like really calming about having like a quieter environment. So like when I work, I always have headphones on. Sometimes I have music, sometimes I don't. So learning all these little things that really help yourself feel more at ease throughout the day. There's so many more, but let's go with that.
It always like surprises me how simple some of these things are, these tools, and how almost like common sense that they can seem almost to like the outside person to think like with a healthy skepticism, like, well, that can't work, all my problems won't be solved with just a walk outside, right? But it's like, but we don't practice them, and then we get caught up in modern life, and we're switching from this email to that email, and we're running around all day, and we're wondering why we're so stressed out at the end of the day. It's like these elemental things. And I love how you even phrased it, like the earth, the water, you know, the air with breath work, the fire with the sun. Like
Uh-huh.
it really is these core things that as humans we've had for so long, and we become so disconnected in our kind of modern era from. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I think it's a fun experimentation, you know, like if someone has the ability to, you know, incorporate a few of these practices within their day and just kind of test it out, see how it difference, what it makes, and go from there. And I'm super curious as well, what are the things that you know you either need to avoid, or like, you know, you're going to need extra support? So like, is travel, for example, something that's a little overwhelming, or just like, what are the times when you like already know yourself and you're like, that's going to be a lot?
Mm-hmm. Um, anything that is, yeah, travel for sure. Big parties, like, you know, New Year's. Like I knew with New Year's that the next day, like I was going to go to bed late. I was going to be with around a lot of people, fireworks. Like, so the next day I knew not like to leave my day open so I can rest and go to the beach and just lay there, you know, like, so anything in that sense for sure. And then when I have a lot to do in a short amount of time, so like if I know that I have like 3 or 4 things back to back on my calendar, like I have a client, I have a class, I have a call, I have this, like, and it's back to back, I know that I will need some time after to like do nothing, to just take a break, right? Or I will need before something to like pump me up and get myself like ready. Anything that makes me feel like I'm rushing, basically. If I know that I'm going to be rushed, and that's part of travel a lot, I find, you know, like rushing to the airport, there's this, there's that, there's like so many steps, and you're always kind of running a little bit. That any situation that creates that sense of rushing for me, I know that I need to organize accordingly, give myself a little bit of space. Anything that requires me to do more than, you know, one or like a few things at the same time. So it's just a little bit more draining. Like I know it's more draining if I can do one thing, or if it's required for me to juggle like 5 things for a project, or, you know, something like that. I know I'm going to be like, I'm going to need a little bit of a break. So like a really concrete example is that I am doing coaching right now as a coachee, and it's business coaching, because that's not something that came naturally to me being an entrepreneur. So I'm, you know, getting some help on business mindset and all these things. And I had to tell her, because she's giving me like all sorts of homework and it's great and I'm learning a ton, but my schedule was already kind of full before I took that on, right? So I had to tell her after like 3 weeks, I'm like, okay, I'm going to need a week off. And she was like, what you mean? I'm like, I need a break. I need like a vacation from our work. I need to like rest, and then we'll start again. And then we did another 3. And then I was like, okay, I need a week off. And she was kind of a little shocked by it. But like, I know that if I'm adding more to my schedule, there's just so long I can go before feeling like I'm going to crash or I'm going to get sick, or right, like, because I'm adding extra. So knowing these things and giving that, and I do that in my group coachings now as well. Like the program is 8 weeks, but we do it on 10 weeks. So they get 2 weeks off, like at 2 points, so they can like go back to their life or do something they love that they haven't had time to do, and like take a break from like, okay, I need to unplug from this project, and then I can come back to it more energized, more inspired, more excited, right? So all of these things.
Yeah, I definitely believe in that philosophy. Like rest, don't give up, just rest. And I think it takes like a
Mm-hmm.
special ability to give yourself permission and form boundaries in your life to actually like say, like, these are my needs and I'm going to listen to them, even though everyone else wants me to do this and society expects me to be running around all the time. Like, no, I've been
Mm-hmm.
there, I've done that. I'm going to listen this time. So, one parting question for you, what would you say are like your and other sensitive people? Like, what are your greatest strengths? And what do you see these people really like, or very special about them and just contributing to society in so many beautiful ways?
Yeah. So I mentioned already intuition. So that's a really good one. Um, there's also any detail oriented work. So anything that any work that you have to do that you have to notice all the little things, you're going to do very well at. We're very good friends, very good listeners. We're good at holding space. So any profession that is around, psychology, coaching, like these kind of things, like we're very good at receiving other people. Anything that's around the healing art, we're also very talented at, because we notice the little things, because we're connected to our intuition, because we read the energy of people around us. um Anything that we can do from home, like any work that you can do from home, is going to be like good for you. If you're highly sensitive, it's going to be the type of work that you're going to feel comfortable in, versus like a job that you have to be on the road all the time, right? Like in contrast, anything that's creative, so any art related, anything design, whether it's like creating little things, or like online, any like content creation is actually a good job to do for a sensitive person. Anything that's creative, we tend to be very connected to that beauty, right? If you remember that. So anything that's in the realm of beauty, fashion, interior design, like there's so many things that we can be very, very, very good at. So I would think, just to think about any job that requires intuition, that requires creativity, that requires attention to detail, um, and a capacity to listen, to receive, to hold space, to be sensitive to what's going on in your environment. Like there's so many.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think so much for this audience too. There's so many women who, were using alcohol in their lives for so long and are kind of, getting some fresh air away from it and really rediscovering who they really are. And maybe
Mm.
recognizing like, yeah, I picked up drinking to numb that or to hide that or to, step back a little here and really getting to know the core of who they are today. And maybe that's not the like clown at the party who's hanging off the chandeliers. Actually, they prefer, like a night in. And maybe there's this more creative side and they're getting stifled in this, accounting job or something, not picking on any career or anything like that, but just to truly get to know themselves. I think it's just a beautiful art in our life. And,
Yeah.
anyone who takes the time and the reflection and the space in their life to be able to do that and then kind of shift and pivot from there, it's just such a well worth journey. And I really love this topic because it's just something that you've taught me so much about, and I love these practices. Like I can also tell too, I think like almost any human being could use what you've been telling us today, right? Like we get so rushed, we get so hurried, we have so many demands on our lives that like we just need to rest, we need to go outside, we need to get that sunshine, we need to swim, we need to touch the earth, all those things. So those are really great reminders just for me too about how to incorporate this slowness into your life,
Mm-hmm.
to really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it more.
I think you don't have to be highly sensitive to need to slow down, to need to be more mindful, to need to be more grounded. Like being highly sensitive is one thing, but I think all humans, like we can use a little support in our nervous system just because of the time we live in and the pressure of being productive, the pressure of all the shoulds that we make up for ourselves, of how we're supposed to look like. And no, I don't mean physically, but like present ourselves in all these ways. So I think, as you said, awareness is always the first step, and learning about yourself and who you are and what you need. Like you can't give yourself what you need if you don't know what that is. And a lot of people in this work, like if I ask my clients, like, what is it you want or what is it you need? Like there's a lot of, I don't know. Like, I don't even know anymore. Like, I'm so accustomed to people pleasing. I'm so accustomed to codependency. I'm so accustomed to doing what I think I should be doing, that I'm completely disconnected from what I do want and what I do need. So how am I going to give that to myself when I don't know what that is? So they need time to slow down, because the language of your body and the language of your nervous system is subtle until it's not anymore, right? Until you're like completely sick or you're burnt out, or until it's not. But if you want to catch yourself like a little earlier than that, you have to slow down enough to hear all those whispers of your body, your mind, your intuition that are like, I don't think you're going down the right path right now. It's not going to yell at you. So like if there's noise of everything around you, if everything is always like thrown at you at all your senses, that you can't hear that. And everybody needs their intuition, everybody needs their own guidance and tapping into the wisdom of their own body. You don't have to be highly sensitive to have to to need that, you know? And I think the basic tools we talked about are good for everyone, and particularly for highly sensitive people.
Yeah. Oh, couldn't agree more. Well, Erica, it's just been such a pleasure and delight to learn from you today and talk to you more. And I'm just curious if anyone wants to follow you, learn more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah. So on social, I hang out on Instagram. That's pretty much the only social platform I'm actively on. But if they come to my website, erikabelanger.com, they have so much stuff there. There's freebies for them for there's practices of stress release and of things that they can really like put in practice, some examples of the things we talked about today. And of course, they can come and say hello in the DMs or on the contact form there. I love to chat with people. And I have a coaching group coming up in the spring. So if people are interested in that, they can get on the wait list now. Obviously, we'll talk about how to support your sensitivity and work with your nervous system and all these things. So that will be our focus for highly sensitive people. So if they're listening and they're like, oh my God, you're describing myself and I've been struggling and I've been self-rejecting and I've been doing all these things, then let's chat, come and say hi, and we'll see where we go from there.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, Erica, we'll be sure to link all of that great information in the show notes below. And just thank you so much for being on the show. I really
Mm.
appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.